When I bought my house in the quiet Maple Ridge subdivision, I thought I'd found peace. The community was small, tidy, and governed by an HOA that promised neighborhood harmony. But that was before I met Karen, the HOA president with a permanent scowl and a clipboard that could summon fear in anyone. She ran the neighborhood like a dictator with a gardening glove. Her motto was, "Rules are rules, except when they didn't apply to her." My property bordered the community clubhouse lot. Between my backyard and theirs was a thin strip of land, technically mine, that sloped slightly downward. I'd always thought it was too small to matter until Karen decided it would make the perfect location for the HOA's new community pool. One afternoon, she marched up my driveway flanked by 2 board members and announced, "We're expanding. Your land is included in the new layout." I blinked. Included? That's my land. She gave me a tight smile. We looked at the survey records. It's ambiguous. For the betterment of the community, we'll be using it. Of course, you'll benefit from increased property value. I refused immediately. That strip might not have been much, but it was mine. I liked my privacy. Karen frowned, muttering about uncooperative residents and special meetings. The next day, I received a letter claiming the HOA had voted to reclassify my land as communal property. That's when the war began. I called my lawyer, who confirmed the HOA had no right to seize private land. Still, Karen wasn't backing down. She started citing obscure clauses and sending violation notices for my fence, height, lawn color, even the unauthorized birdbath in my garden. It was harassment disguised as regulation. Then one morning, I woke to the sound of machinery. From my window, I saw a backhoe digging dangerously close to my fence line. Karen stood nearby, barking orders in a sun hat and oversized sunglasses like a general commanding troops. I stormed out. "You're on my property." She didn't even flinch. "This area's been reassigned. You'll be reimbursed." I called the police, but they said it was a civil matter. By the time my lawyer filed an injunction, half the slope was already gone. Karen smiled smugly at the court order later, claiming it was too late to reverse construction. But beneath that smugness, she had no idea what she was unleashing. The ground she'd dug into wasn't ordinary soil, it was unstable, riddled with limestone veins and hollow pockets. My grandfather, a geologist, had warned me about it years ago. Karen, of course, hadn't listened to anyone but herself. And soon, the land would make sure she paid for it. A week after the illegal excavation began, I noticed cracks forming along my back fence. At first, they were small, hairline fractures running through the concrete. By day 3, they'd widened enough to slip a coin through. The ground felt different underfoot, softer somehow, like walking over a sponge. Karen dismissed my concern when I confronted her during one of her progress inspections. "It's normal," she said, waving a manicured hand. "The soil just needs compacting. Once we pour the foundation, it'll stabilize." I almost laughed. "You're pouring a pool foundation on shifting ground. That's not stabilizing, that's asking for disaster." Her lips thinned. "The board approved it. The permits are in order. Please refrain from interfering." Interfering? She was building on my property and destroying it. I took photos, documented every crack, and sent them to my lawyer, who promised to escalate. But lawsuits take time, and Karen was moving fast. By the end of the month, the pool's skeleton was complete. A massive rectangle of rebar and concrete towering absurdly close to my fence. Then, during a particularly heavy rainstorm, things started to shift. I heard it first, a deep, rumbling groan that seemed to come from beneath the ground. My lights flickered. The next morning, I found that a section of my yard had sunk by nearly 2 inches. The cracks had become trenches. I called the HOA emergency line, but no one responded. Later that afternoon, Karen arrived with her usual entourage, pretending nothing was wrong. When I pointed out the damage, she gave me that plastic smile again. Subterranean erosion is common after heavy rain, she said. We'll patch it. Patch it? I snapped. You're standing over a sinkhole in the making. She rolled her eyes. Don't exaggerate. If anything happens, the HOA is insured. But deep down, I knew insurance wouldn't fix what was coming. The ground had started humming, faint vibrations that grew stronger every day. My dog refused to go near the back fence, barking at the dirt as if it were alive. 2 nights later, I woke to a loud crack. The sound of splitting earth echoed through my walls. I ran outside to find a jagged hole spreading near the pool site. Water pipes snapped, spraying fountains into the air. Karen, of course, blamed me. She accused me of tampering with the soil to sabotage her project. But the truth was simpler, the earth itself was rebelling. And it wasn't done yet, by the time the sun rose that morning. Chaos ruled Maple Ridge. The hole had grown into a full-blown chasm. Half the pool foundation hung suspended, rebar twisted like spaghetti. HOA members gathered, whispering and pointing fingers. But Karen stood at the edge, insisting everything could still be salvaged. Just fill it with gravel. She shouted at the construction crew, who refused to step closer. The ground around the pit was visibly trembling. You could hear faint pops as underground voids shifted. I warned them to stop, but Karen ignored me as always. You've caused enough trouble. She barked. We're finishing this today. Then, right as she stepped closer to the edge, the earth gave way. It happened in slow motion, a deep roar. The soil folding inward, concrete slabs tilting. And Karen screaming as the ground swallowed her clipboard whole. She stumbled back just in time, landing in the mud while the rest of the pool vanished into darkness. The noise was deafening. When it stopped, a massive crater yawned where the community pool had been. Silence followed, broken only by the gurgle of broken pipes. The clubhouse foundation cracked, its walls slumping toward the pit. People screamed, scattering as the asphalt buckled beneath their cars. It was terrifying and mesmerizing all at once. When emergency crews arrived, they cordoned off the entire area. A geotechnical engineer confirmed what I already knew: the land had collapsed into an undiscovered sinkhole. The excavation had triggered a chain reaction, dissolving the limestone bedrock below. The HOA tried to spin the story, claiming it was a natural disaster. But the evidence was overwhelming. Their unauthorized digging had caused the collapse. My lawyer filed an injunction immediately. And within a week, the county condemned the entire site. Karen, covered in mud and humiliation, finally went silent. Her empire, and her reputation, had literally crumbled into the ground. News crews showed up, reporters calling it the pool that ate the HOA. The sinkhole was huge, stretching beneath the clubhouse and part of Karen's own yard. She had to evacuate, her house teetering on the edge. The HOA funds were drained trying to cover damages. As for me, my land was scarred but still standing. The irony wasn't lost on me: she'd tried to take my property. And instead, she'd destroyed her own. Nature had delivered the justice no court could. Weeks later, the hole remained, a gaping reminder of arrogance and greed. Fences surrounded the site, warning signs fluttering in the wind. Karen had resigned from the HOA for health reasons, though everyone knew it was shame. Her house, now valued at half what it was, sat abandoned while lawyers picked through the wreckage of her decisions. The rest of the neighborhood treated me differently after that. Some avoided eye contact, others apologized quietly, admitting they'd voted for the pool because Karen had pressured them. I didn't hold grudges. I just wanted my peace back. Cleanup crews eventually stabilized the sinkhole perimeter, but the county refused to rebuild anything there. Unfit for construction, the report said. I couldn't help but smile when I read that. The land she'd coveted so badly would never be hers, or anyone's, again. One afternoon, I stood by the fence line, staring into the pit. It had filled partially with rainwater, reflecting the sky like a warped mirror. Nature had reclaimed what arrogance had disturbed. When my lawyer called with the final settlement, it was more than I expected. The HOA's insurance paid for all my property repairs plus damages. I didn't celebrate. Instead, I donated part of the money to fund geological studies in the area. Maybe, just maybe, someone would learn from this. Rumors spread that Karen had moved to another city, joining a new HOA under a different name. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because some people never change. They just find new neighborhoods to control. As for Maple Ridge, the community slowly healed. The board restructured, new leadership promised transparency. And for the first time, rules were discussed, not dictated. My yard grew quiet again. Birds returned to the branches above the scarred slope. And grass began to peek through the edges of the crater. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I thought about how close I'd come to losing everything. And how poetic it was that the land itself had stood up for me. Karen had tried to claim ownership over nature, over control, over me. But in the end, she learned the same lesson everyone does eventually. You can bully people, bend rules, and build wherever you please, but you can't win against the earth. The ground remembers. And sometimes, it fights back.